What should you do when things don't work as expected? How do you troubleshoot a problem? The goal of this next lesson is to introduce you to the debug tools available in Service Studio. The first thing you need to know is how to start the debugger. This is done through the run operation, which implicitly starts the debugger. The most important feature in any debugger is the ability to pause the execution and inspect the state of the application at a specific time. In Service Studio, you can do this with breakpoints. You can set breakpoints pressing F8 or using the right-click menu inside Action Flows, Screen Editors, and Screen Flows. When the execution of your application reaches an element with a breakpoint, the execution pauses. Okay, so far so good. You can pause your application. But what can you do when one of these breakpoints is hit? There are basically two activities you can do once a breakpoint is hit. The first we're going to talk about is stepping. We refer to stepping as the ability to advance the execution of your application one step at a time, allowing you to follow the exact execution path of the application. To control the stepping, you can use the commands in the Debugger tab at the lower pane of your workspace. In your flows, look for the arrow that shows where you currently are. The other activity you typically do once a breakpoint is hit is inspecting the current value of your variables. This is also done at the lower pane of your workspace. The variables in scope are presented in a series of tabs. The first of these tabs displays the current value of the variables in use in the element you're currently in. The Locals tab displays all local variables, and the Widgets tab the current value of the properties of the screen widgets. The Session and Site tabs relate to concepts we'll address later on. And finally, we have the Watches tab. This is a list of variables that you can explicitly choose to watch during the eSpace execution. The Watches tab only contains variables to which you have explicitly added a watch to. You can add watches to variables using the right-click menu. Let's now follow a short debug session. In our debug session, we'll follow through the execution path of importing a list of contacts from an Excel file. So let's open the import screen action and set a breakpoint right at the beginning of the action flow. We're ready to run our eSpace. Let's take a peek at the Excel file we'll be importing. It contains two contacts. One, Anthony Miller, already exists in the database, and the other, Sally Manning, is a new contact. Back to our list of contacts. Let's move on to the Import Contacts screen. Choose the Excel file I've just showed you. We won't be overwriting existing contacts, and start the import. The breakpoint is reached. The execution pauses, and Service Studio comes into action. We'll be using the commands to step through the execution. Let's use step over to move to the next instructions. Starting the cycle, running the query, and let's hold here at the if element. The condition to discard a record is that it already exists, and overwrite is set to false. If we take a look at the current value of our variables, we'll see that overwrite is set to false. We didn't check the override checkbox in the import contact screen, and the query returned a count of 1. This means the contact already exists. This contact will be discarded. Next record from the Excel file. And this time the query returns a count of 0. This means this is a new contact and the cycle will proceed. Let's just switch tabs to take a closer look at the record we'll be creating. Yep, that's Sally Manning's data. It seems okay, let's move on. We only had 2 rows in the Excel file, so we should be leaving the for each for now. All done? Let's continue the request. And we're back in the browser with our newly created contact. Please contact us with questions or feedback to training@outsystems.com. Thank you for watching.